I am a sister abandoned by my family, yet I found the perfect partner in my new life. Just when I was ready to embrace a new beginning. Messages from my father and brother plunged me into deeper pain. How do I find a balance between love and family? This became my greatest challenge. In meeting his family, the next messages I read came from my father, no other than my brother Kyle Ann. Their words pierced through the cocoon of solitude I had built around myself in my new quarters. Luna, my daughter, I miss you dearly. Kyle Ann has found his mate. We have planned a celebration for her introduction to be held on December 1st. It hurts my heart that there was never a celebration for you. I had hoped you would find someone at the center. Someone who would fill the void your soul felt when Jackson refused to be yours. The longer you stayed there, the more hopeful I became. Then you ran off. I hoped it was just a phase. But months later and you're still gone. You deserve to be celebrated. So instead of asking you to come home, I'm going to ask that you keep searching for that someone who will celebrate you the way we should have. Live. Be happy, and when you are ready, share that happiness with us. I love you. Your dad, Noel. My father's words, filled with care and hope, reminded me of the warmth of home I had left behind. I could almost feel his supportive presence, urging me to find my own path to happiness. Kylan's message followed, revealing that he had found his mate. The news was bittersweet, but I felt a surge of happiness for my brother. Dear Luna, I met my mate. Her name is Shay, an exotic beauty who made me see how much we wronged you. Luna, I can only beg for your forgiveness. She's adamant on finishing her schooling and initially refused to come live with me. When Shay refused to return home with me, it put me in a state I could only describe as paralyzing. I would give up everything to be with her, for she is the only person that matters. My life is nothing without her. That is the real meaning of a soulmate. What Jackson has done to you kills me. He chose our sister because he liked her personality, without giving you a chance to show him yours. Our parents allowed this. I allowed this. For my part in separating you from him, I don't deserve Shantawai. I don't deserve a happy ending because I did nothing to help you in your darkest hour. I confess, Nila's happiness meant more to me at the time, only because she was my pure human sister. I needed no other reason to agree with Jackson. I was happy to watch him safeguard her. It's what we have been doing all our lives, creating a safe environment for her. Jackson said you replied to him. Luna, please don't give in to them. You will be happier on your own. If you need money or anything, contact me. But going home will only be a lifetime of suffering for you. I could never watch Shay with another. No one should have to watch their mate with another. Nyla is not his mate. She is his preference, but only because he refused to allow you in. Don't allow him in. Your remorseful brother, Kyle and Miller. Attached was a picture of Kylan and his mate. He was being modest when he said she was an exotic beauty, Shay was a goddess. My brother had found not just a beauty, but a brilliant, independent woman who insisted on continuing her education, thinking about the promising future that lay ahead for them and the beautiful children they might have stung my eyes. Their happiness was a stark reminder of what I had lost, what Jackson had denied me. As I sat in my new quarters, surrounded by the books Blaze had gifted me, I felt a complex mix of emotions. The joy for my brother's newfound happiness clashed with the lingering pain of my own rejection. Kylan's remorse and protective instinct shone through his words, reminding me of the strong bond we shared despite the distance between us. I traced my fingers over the image of Shay, noting her intelligent eyes and confident posture. She seemed to embody everything I aspired to be: strong, independent, and loved. The contrast between her celebration and my own uncelebrated status, Jackson's rejected mate, felt like a knife twisting in my heart. Yet, as I breathed in the comforting scent of new books that now permeated my living space, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps, like Shay, I too could forge my own path, focusing on personal growth and finding happiness on my own terms. The words of my father and brother, though tinged with sadness, also carried the promise of unconditional love and support. He may not have been a good brother, but I was certain he would be a good mate to Shay. His advice showed how much he had grown. Regardless of it all so sane or little he thought of me, that I would fall to J. Axon's feet if I returned. Because I was the coward sister who ran. Hey, are you okay? Blaze was here after what seemed like an endless day. He was late today, which was the reason I was tucking Brendan into bed. Heidi never objected of me invading her job. In fact, I think she liked getting out of sleeping duties. I was not okay. All the reasons I once had for avoiding my family didn't really exist. Not only had I moved on, but found someone who was perfect. Someone who made life better and gave me a family. Dad and Kyle messaged me, was all I could say. Blaze pulled me in tightly to his chest, holding me until all the shaking was gone. He whispered sweet nothings in my ears, reminding me that I was only procrastinating. Meeting Nolan would expiate the destiny made written for me by the goddess. But I could have a happy ending because I would not be alone. I had a choice mate who was everything I dreamed of in a male. Can I read them? The messages. My chosen male requested. He kept me in his arms as he inspected the emails. Was I being dramatic? Crying because Daddy reminded me I was valued by my mate. Jealous that Chantal Y would be accepted and regarded better than I was. Their own flesh and blood. Then the most painful part of everything. My own sister never messaged me. Nor did my mother. They didn't want me back. The proof was in the lack of communication attempt. For the first 2 years they expected me to just wade through my life. How could they really expect me to stay after that wedding? Was I supposed to pretend Jackson didn't tell the world Nilla was the only person deserving of his love? How was I supposed to face them when they didn't make any attempt to show me I was welcomed back, or that they felt a small amount of remorse for being the reason I would never be with the man made for me? All because they wanted to keep their precious Nilla safeguarded. Third. Angry hammers forged an arsenal using hatred and resent within my soul. Weapons I would use to never be close to those wolves again. Whether or not you decide to return, the choice is yours. Not some order given by your father because he feels the shame now that he has a daughter-in-law. Blaze gave me a new perspective on the situation. Shame. It finally made an appearance at the Miller and Tudor homes. I almost overlooked Dad's words. Once again I would have been manipulated into doing what they wanted, because he prettied those words to show a level of care. How stupid was I to not see that in Dad saying to stay away? Dad could say, I told her to go seek a mate and not return until she finds one. When the pack learns this, he may even be praised for setting the mate less female-free that I may find happiness. Well played, Dad. Well played. Father of a lifetime. All for his Nia. My father didn't really care for me. I think I should go back. He offered me a comforting smile, agreeing that it was time to end all connections to my past. Detaching myself from the family bond was inevitable. He, too, was just as vested in my return. Ending that chapter of my life was just as important to him. No male deserved to live with a female who still held another man in her heart. Laughable. I never fell in love with my mate. The mate attraction was nothing more than a suggestion from the goddess. She didn't program us to automatically love our mate, though we did have a constant attraction to them. If mates didn't let the magic of the bond happen, love couldn't happen. I was never allowed to fall in love with Jackson. Not real love. I only loved who he was by observing him with Neela. Enthusiasm in my heart, I never held love for him. Only a craving to love him. Are you sure? He rested his forehead on mine. There's no reason to procrastinate. Thus, they should meet you. Not before my folks meet you. I didn't forget his mother planned a family dinner for Thanksgiving. I spent an entire afternoon with Dixie trying to find the most appropriate dress for the event. I even made an appointment at the spa to have my hair and nails done. What mattered was this family, the people who couldn't wait to meet me. Charlotte called me almost daily after I gave her my number. She never failed to remind me how happy she was to have me here. She said the things I needed to hear to feel loved. When she spoke of the future, with me as her daughter-in-law, she would always remind me I was a blessing to her son and grandchild. Thanksgiving dinner, I said aloud. You don't have to think about that now, he said while inhaling my hair. The winter solstice was approaching and with it, each season, though pregnancy was possible at any time during the year. The winter solstice was the goddess's way of ensuring her disciples carried our species forward. The symptoms of this impending heat were upon me. His hand moved up my skirt and settled on my ass, pulling me to his body. This was natural, I chanted in my head. Hungry kissing followed my tearing of my blouse. I was pinned on the couch. My nipple was in his mouth and wetness between my thighs only invited him to feast on me. Mark him the inner thoughts fueled by cardinal desires. Demanded. Give him all of me. The same thoughts would fill my mind after each of the many dates we had been on. Not ready for this. The statement said aloud was manifested in my head but not what my body felt. His touch felt right, and I besought nothing more in this moment than for him to ravish me. I didn't push him away. Wet kisses only invited him to continue. My voice sought to end this but my hands continued to remove his tie and shirt. We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. He spoke in between the kissing, appealing to good sense. Despite the actions of my body supplicating for him, I wasn't prepared to elevate us to this level of intimacy. I want to, but we can't. Not yet. I clung to the last vestiges of my control. Not on the pill yet. Heavy breaths didn't stop how needy I felt. There wasn't a point of saving myself for any more. We were consenting adults. In a committed relationship. Sex was going to happen eventually. The choice of allowing heat to be the reason, however, was a concern of mine. I may have given up on soul bonding with the one destined to be mine, but that didn't negate the long for romance. My first time shouldn't be because the goddess put me under the influence of heat. I still clung to him, not only because his hands held me in place, but the lust didn't dissipate. The want was still there. He knew how I felt, and from his dark incompletion, he too was famished. The lust fever would only worsen in time. You're right. His heavy breathing mirrored the pounding within my chest. Not like this. There were so many meanings trapped in that sentence. I was a recidivist to wolf traditions. I needed to follow the rules even if no one was monitoring. The days never went further than where I was willing to go. His control was tested after each date, when the kissing would lead us onto my bed. Though he didn't complain about the abstinence, I sensed it was time we took the next step. He said as he got off me, giving me his shirt to cover myself. How cute, but unnecessary. No, I refused his shirt by pushing his hand aside. I'm ready for us to take this further, but not prepared. I need to be on the pill injection. Yes, of course. I can arrange for a doctor to come here if that makes you more comfortable. No, I should go in. I can do it after my exams at the college on Thursday. I was required to go into the campus to write the end of semester exams. Why not utilize the day? I don't want to push you, but I think we should talk a bit more about you going back, he said after a long pause. I will come back if that's what's worrying you. I huffed. I detested how easy it was for me to switch on the insecure button in my head, because now I was thinking he only initiated sex to lay some primal claim to me. What if he marked me, but only to assure I returned? I hated myself for this. My mind ran a series of simulations. If I go back to Jackson leaking of blaze, why was I doing this to myself? Not. I was offering to accompany you. This didn't make my doubt go away. The autopilot part of my brain was attached to my insecurities. Are you going to ensure I come back or to keep Jackson away? This was low of me. I knew the second I heard myself speak. However, I couldn't afford to be the naughty girl who allowed others to control my choices. I was ready to defend my statement, expecting an argument or even silent treatment. He pulled me in closer. Luna, may I accompany you on your visit to your hometown, so that I can meet your family and formally make them aware of my intentions to spend the rest of my life with you? Why was he this perfect? I trust you. If I have done or said something to make you believe otherwise, let me sincerely apologize. He kissed my knuckles where he was finished speaking. I lowered my head in shame, only for him to use his index to raise my chin until our eyes met. I don't know why I get like this. I confessed. Life. One word that summed it all up. One word that showed me he understood my insecurities. even as I struggled to fully comprehend. I was falling in love with him more and more with each passing day. Our past was so similar, our broken souls easily bonded. There was always a need to express our feelings because we knew what the other was experiencing. This almost felt meant to be. If second chances existed, this was ours. At the doctor's office, I was pleased to find Blaze in the waiting room. His moral support was appreciated, but at the same time, he should know of the effects and side effects that might result from any of the methods I chose. This was an us decision after all. After a long and informative discussion on all my options, I chose a contraceptive injection. He supported me in my decision that I was not going to give him any children. I feared he would one day look back on his decision, however his reply negated all my doubt. This alpha stands by his choices and keeps his promises. He said it with pride. We agreed to give it a week or more to ensure its effectiveness. Despite the doctor assuring us it would begin working within the first 20, I was a she-wolf approaching heat who refused to risk it. With exams behind me, the days started moving faster. Blaze took me out almost each night on dates. In and around his town, we were moving fast. Not that I was complaining. We were a couple falling in love and enjoying the journey. Our talks no longer were about my past. We spent our time learning about each other's interest. With the exception of his mate. He was ready and I didn't push. Thanksgiving was upon us, making it now time for part one of meeting the family. You ready? Blaze asked before he rang the doorbell. We were outside his parents' house. Brendan stood between us, dressed in an identical matching suit to his dad's grey. Both my guys wore attire that complemented my baby pink dress. We captured the look of a happy family. Annie Leah. Brendan screamed as soon as the door opened. His cheerfulness always brought a smile to my face, even when he was mispronouncing words. Brendan, look at how big my nephew has grown. Thalia matched his energy. Hey sis, was all Blaze gotten before she grabbed him into a bear hug. And this must be Luna. You're even more beautiful than the picture Mum sent me. What? Her mum sent her picture me. Hi. Can I see that picture? I must have sounded rough, because she froze nervously, then looked to her brother for what appeared to be a rescue. I couldn't let her first impression of me be this, even if I was annoyed that my photo was being passed around without my consent. I'm sure Mum has it framed up somewhere in this house. Blaze diffused the tension, and when I laughed, Thalia visibly relaxed. I sure do. Charlotte emerged from the house, sweeping up Brendan into her arms. Behind her was Blaze's dad, Governor Quantle, whose face I came to know after the Google search I did weeks ago. Had his eyes not been brown, he would have been almost identical but older-looking Blaze. Luna, you remember my mother and this is my dad. Blaze continued with the introductions. It's a pleasure to meet you, Governor. Please, call me Justin, and if you look over this way. He took me by the elbow, then led me to the sitting room. You'll see your famous portrait hanging right on the wall. A candid of Brendan and I, taken by Blaze the morning after I met him. At the breakfast table, Blaze must have sent it to her. The fact that it was hanging in the house felt a tiny bit creepy. However, it was still a picture of their grandson, a cute one to that. I love this picture. Blaze, why don't I have a copy of it? It warmed my heart to find that moment immortalized. He kissed my forehead, then promised to send me a copy. My heart fluttered, to the point I thought I would pass out. Dinner is ready, Mum. The maid informed Charlotte, who then directed us to the dining room. Both his grandparents were already seated and awaiting the rest of the family. Grandma, Grandpa, this is Luna. I bowed to them as he spoke. Finally, 9 months was long at all Blaze. The grandmother's sarcasm alone made me love her the most among everyone. Ease up on him. Justin growled at the old couple. Blaze didn't appear bothered by them. He walked to the old lady first, kissing her cheek, then bowed to the old man. Old wolves were honored regardless of how savage they spoke. I'm so happy to finally meet you all, I said after sitting down. Brendan found his way to my lap, which was a habit of his when it came to eating, but only when Blaze was around. I found it cute how territorial he was over me. Blaze didn't mind either. We both knew one day we would be married and I would become Brendan's mother. Hence, he encouraged our bonding. Trust me, the pleasure is all ours. Justin insisted. We should have a hunt now that we've met you. A hunt? I looked to Blaze confused. Have you ever hunted on pause? Charlotte asked. I could only assume she sensed my confusion. Not real hunting. I did learn how to hunt. It's part of the mandatory training when I was around 11. All eyes landed on me. Hunting must be normal for them here in this town. But from the pack I was born into, hunting wasn't a female sport. Or necessary. Food was easily available. Fresh or frozen. Why would we need to physically go into the woods to hunt? Men would sometimes give chase to a herd of elk when they were out running. I wasn't sure if that classified as hunting. All young wolves are supposed to learn how to survive in the wilderness. That's the law. Justin, no, the Alpha-turned governor, said authoritatively. Alpha Donovan didn't allow unmated females to hunt. He would authorize running in pairs, and the men are allowed to go hunting alone but never the females. I think it's meant to be a bonding activity or something, I explained. Donovan calls his pack wolves or humans. Blaze was disgusted without my reply. I should have been offended. However, growing up I too would wonder why we lived more like humans than wolves. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Every pup learns to survive on the wilderness within the first year of shifting. I'll remember to take it up with my alpha when I return. Your alpha. He raised his voice in your alpha, and this is your pack. No going back. Thud. 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 His family was all present and accounted for. At this table watching this all unfold. Raging fires behind sapphire eyes burned solely on me. Angry, but still gentle. His gaze held me captive. How was I to respond? I'm sure she means to visit. What the hell, Brandy? Thalia came to my aid. That boy's whipped again. His grandpa spoke in an unsettling manner. The others at the table all went silent. He was projecting a violent attitude, nor was he being possessive. The emotion I detected was fear. He was triggered by the possibility of me forsaking him. I don't think I phrased it badly, but an insecure person would always hear what they wanted too. Blaze was reacting to his fear of me not returning. We had been dating months now. The stages of insecurity were new to me, perhaps because I didn't have any doubt about us. When I agreed to be exclusive, I started pretending Blaze was my mate. The butterflies and goosebumps from his touch became tingles via my imagination. Poor choice in words, I guess. When I visit Telford Donovan, he'll ask. Still the room remained silent. You come back. Brendan's little hand touched my face. Then he asked for my lap. His puppy eyes made my chest constrict. He was on the verge of crying, not because of the yelling but because he too feared I may never return. Of course I'm coming back, baby boy. I'm just going to visit my mom and dad. Brendan, my boy. Grandma cut me off. Luna is entering a stage in her life that is making your daddy act crazy. She's just going to visit her mom and dad. The heat symptoms. Blaze was experiencing paranoia, which was brought on by the pheromones I was emitting. A wolf's reaction to his mate. Applied to chosen mates as well. His innate nature to protect his chosen female. Wouldn't hide now that my body was telling all males around me that I was ready to be peeped. Realizing they could also sense my body preparing for the upcoming heat season. Made me want to hide. What kind of impression was this? Would they think I was using my body as a drug to lure Blaze? The desperate male being manipulated by a desperate female. Brendan may not have understood fully what his great-grandmother was saying. However, he did grasp the main point. I would be returning. I promise I'll be back. You're my best little boy. I love you. You know that. I vowed. I love you till a star. He hugged me. If that isn't the cutest thing I've ever seen. Failure marked at us. There's a feeling you get. When your consciousness and the part of your mind in denial both come alive. When one half of yourself believes your reasons are egocentric yet the other half is convinced. You're in survival mode. Which do you believe? Nolan was my flesh and blood. And like Brendan, family should be put above all others. It's the original pack I was born into above all. The wolf in me. The animal side that is. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nogan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. The distance that started as a means to heal myself was now a punishment. Here I was happy with my new family, pretending I didn't care to meet a child who did nothing to me. His parents' sin should not be his to carry. All the reasons I once used to back my passion in being a lone wolf now slipped my memory. How could I honestly love this child? Being the terrible aunt. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nogan, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Charity begins at home. Lay heavy on my soul. At 8, I heard someone say in the background. It become to disoriented to know whose voice it heard. How were your finals? Charlotte asked. Finals. Grandpa Quintal quizzed. She's doing law grandpa. Blaze boosted. Beauty and brains. This what I like. The old wolf muttered. Each time he spoke, I felt as if he was evaluating me, as if he had a scorecard that was being compared to Jade. Did he not like her? Who would though? She abandoned her son. I wore a sanguine smile, thinking I had one with Brendan as my wild card. Even with the knoll and cloud above me, I was able to show Blaze ES family my best qualities without putting on a performance. I keep true to who I was, gambling that they would come to accept me for me. I used to think at a point in life, I was defective. My personality was unfavorable to those looking on at me. Dry and lacking interest was what I believed myself to be, because I let words of Jackson to sink under my skin. The opinions of an ordinary male, who hadn't proven himself to be a prize of any kind, broke my self-esteem, reinforced with the poor support system that was my family. The battle was lost, or so I thought. Being in a room full of not just wolves, authority figures like the Quintal family, who were all eager to become acquainted with me, shattered that low self-esteem. Not that Blaze didn't already pull me out of that bottomless pit. This family sealed the soul-sucking hole. Though I suspected they knew of the circumstances that led me to this pack, they didn't venture into that territory. Neither was the topic of Blaze ES passed brow to the dinner table. They saw the love I had for Brendan and knew there wasn't any shape or form of insecurity dwelling in me with regards to him. As I said, my wild card. Saying I wooed them was an understatement. Even cynical Grandpa gave up on his crusade to find flaws in me halfway into our meal. Brandy, you're a fool. When David said he found someone, you should have gone after her the very minute, said Grandpa, who then looked at me. Luna, I'd cheers a fool for making you come to him. Make him crawl in the future. He finished with a smirk. Thanks, Gramps, Blaze said, rubbing his chest. I second that. Luna, you are simply divine. I for one feel cheated that my moron brother didn't make a better effort to meet you. Thalia spoke. Blaze reached over to me, took my hand in his, then spoke. I'll take that title. I was foolish, but you all should know from the moment I first saw her, which was early in the morning, she stood outside the balcony of the servants' quarters, looking at my car. The wind blew the curls in her hair while the sun lit each strand. She took my breath away. Literally, I had to stop my car to look at her. Now you should know. David had been telling me about you since he met you. He would always describe a woman who had the old traits in a she, wolf-smart, well-spoken, poised in determination to overcome the worst that life threw at her. I aspired to be like you, Luna, before I even met you. David insisted this amazing she-wolf would be the one. But I didn't have faith that she was real until I saw her standing on that balcony. You may not believe me, but it was love at first sight. 11 courtesy, I love you, Luna. His voice made the earth stop. Thud, thud, thud. The blood rushed to my ears, made me light-headed. So light. I'm sure had he not been holding onto my hand, I would have floated up into the upper atmosphere, then out of this planet. He leaned into my lips, and I felt more connected to him than ever before. Now that I knew he loved me, his kiss tasted better. His touch went deeper than the surface of my skin, entering the streams of my blood then into my bones, until he was touching my soul. His confession made me become intoxicated with his truth. A high I never felt before, and even better. The feeling was mutual. I love you too. I was sure if I shouted or whispered. I was vocally paralyzed when he admitted his feelings. No other words formed in my mind, as if I had lost the ability to speak English. I suspected he knew about my character long before our actual meeting, but never had I imagined the impression I gave David would be a quality one would admire, especially a man of Blaze ES calibers. Back then, I was surviving, living day to day, refusing to give in to the limited options life was offering to me, not knowing I was indirectly teaching him that we could make our own choices. His honesty stunned me into silence, not because I didn't feel the same endearment, but because I was in disbelief. Being in love and being loved in return shifted the natural laws of physics as the sun was now rotating around me. It showed with Justin, and Grandpa Quintal stood up, taking the focus off me, to congratulate Blaze and having found love again. My incapacitation didn't offend anyone, because they knew the feeling was mutual. My blushing and the tears of joy compensated for the lack of words. You made her speechless, Thea said after hugging her brother. His entire family were all ecstatic, as if they had been waiting years for him to allow someone back into his life. His real mate did so much damage. I bet they thought he would never recover. Funny how I once thought I would also never recover. Perhaps the goddess did know what she was doing. The Quintal men surrounded Blaze, shaking his hand, then made little speeches about how delighted they were for him. The well wishes extended to me as well. They commented how lucky Blaze was to find me, then toasted to me for making their family whole again. Our Thanksgiving dinner turned into a welcome to the family dinner. Not the traditional celebration done in my birth pack when a male found his female, but it was so close. I felt welcomed, and more importantly, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thank you, Luna. My son is home again, Charlotte said to me as she hugged me goodbye when we were leaving. In the car, Brendan had already fallen asleep before we exited the driveway. Instead of the usual unsettled state of uncertainty, I felt calm. Are you okay now? Or should I drive you to the neurologist? I had been all smiles with limited words for most of the evening. I even stuttered a few times during the night. You tell me you're in love with me, openly and in front of your family, and you think I'm the one who needs to see a neurologist. I countered. His eyes remained on the road as he laughed. His hand rested on my thigh as he drove, while my head rested on top his. As much as his touch lit fires within me, my mind could only focus on the words he spoke earlier. I should have given you that moment in private. I cringed at the word moment, which he noticed. The word sent me back to Jackson, the isolation I lived, all because of what he and Nida termed my moment. His green eyes emerged from my memory, reminding me that they would look at me the way Blaze ES Sapphire Blues looked at me. Even as Blaze drove, he still showed concern for me, sensing something was wrong. The alarm showed in those beautiful blue eyes as he looked at me, then back at the road. He grew uneasy with apprehension, seeing the sudden change in my state. Sweetheart, what's wrong? He let out his dominating aura. The alpha beast was presenting himself in my company for the first time. Any other day, I would have crumbled and retreated in his presence, being a she-wolf of no particular rank. Today, however, there was no sense of disquiet at all, because the raging alpha male before me, J. Axon's deceitful green eyes, didn't haunt me. The image, I realized, lost its impact now that I had fully accepted a chosen mate. Blaze ES Blue outshined, then eliminated the memory of Jackson. Those greens just didn't have the effect it once did, which only reinforced my belief. The mate connection I once felt to Jackson was gone. Blaze stopped the car to tend to me. My silent state sent him into a frenzy, because he didn't know what was happening. He was worried. I've never had this before. No one ever showed this level of concern for me in the past. I had always been alone in my battles, silently repairing the damage. Today was different. My alpha male was here, and based on the testosterone pumping into the air, he was physically ready to protect me. Luna. Blaze called my name as he examined me. Moments. I paused to close my eyes. I don't like that word. I'll try to never say it. He kissed my forehead, leaving his lips on me for a while. I didn't mean to scare you. Tonight was perfect, I admitted. I much rather his open confession than a private one, only because I was rejected in private once before. This open declaration meant the world to me. No one would understand how broken I really was. Had he told me this in private, the voices in my head would have convinced me it was all a dream. Back at his house, Blaze took a sleeping Brendan inside while I helped with the bags. They were mostly supplies for Brendan, and even he needed a change of clothing. I watched as he tucked him under the blanket, then we both kissed the sleeping child goodnight. He really loves you, Blaze reminded me. I love him too. Both of you. Do you want to stay the night here? Spending the night together had been on my mind for a while. Not just because of the impending heat, but because I was ready for more in our relationship. I'd like that. But let me go back to my room first. I need to change into sexy lingerie I finished in my head. I showered and shaved, then covered myself with Rose Otto essential oil in preparation for what I hoped to be an intimate night. Since taking the contraceptive injection, I had been gathering a collection of lingerie. I began wearing lacy panties that matched my bra at all times, hoping each night would be the right one to spend with Blaze. I chose an ivory silk nightgown that didn't reveal much. The material flowed over my body and stopped at my thigh. Thin straps allowed my shoulders to be seen, but the dress itself hid my breast. The fabric hovered over my sensitive nipples, making them hard and pronounced. I wanted this modest look for my first time. I wore the matching silk robe over the nightgown, then slowly began to walk back to the adjoining door to Blaze's house. I was worried you wouldn't return, came Blaze's voice as I entered his living room. He didn't startle me, as I could sense him there even before I opened the door. He had also showered and changed. His 5 o'clock shadow was gone, and his hair was still damp. Now I was wondering, how long did I take? Did you miss me? I moved in front of him. He opened his mouth to answer, but I didn't let him. We were kissing and moving towards his bedroom. He touched me, leaving trails of fire on my skin. The burning felt so good. I became a living furnace, hungry for the flame. I love you so much, I said to him. No, he pulled away and I flushed with embarrassment. What did I do? Did he lose interest in me? Was I unattractive? So many questions. The invisible birds crammed into the room, laughing at me and waiting for him to become another Jackson. I can't do this, not yet. He was breathing heavy. What? The lust-filled side of me spoke. It's not you. I promise I want this. But him doing this right. Now I was truly confused. You value tradition. In going back with you to your father and getting his blessing first. You deserve a celebration. Luna. I'm going bring you back to this pack and celebrate you as my Luna, then I'll celebrate your body. I'm already a sinner. I won't make you into one. You're a respectable woman. I'll never take that from you. I don't care for traditions. I tried to speak, but he cut me off. My body was trembling at this point. Baby, you think you want this now. But I promise it's your heat talking. You're going to hate yourself when you walk into your father's house after disregarding the traditions he values. He was right. I didn't care, however. I also didn't want to be judged. I was a human like Nella who was free to spread her legs to whomever. My birth pack had not reached this century when it came to a woman's choice over her body. A she-wolf of my age is expected to be pure for her mate, even if she is her chosen. I started thinking of the filthy words the gossiping females may use to describe me. Some might even call me a trap, using the apex between my legs to snare an alpha male, who was now forced to claim me now that HES touched me. I would be no better than my sister who stole a she-wolf's mate. Blaze was right. I would hate myself if those words were the truth. When we go to your parents' house, you go there with your head held high. No one will diminish your name. Tradition may have been forgotten in this pack, but I will respect and uphold what is expected of you when you return to your birth pack. I began to cover myself. He was right, for thinking what I had not. The shame that would follow me if someone were to accuse me of spreading my legs for an alpha who was my mate. They wouldn't care about the facts, because officially, I was not yet his chosen until my father approved the union. How could I even think about insulting my father's house like that? All because I was horny from a heat I hadn't experienced as yet. Guilt and shame made me sink under the covers, trying to hide myself. No, sweetie, don't be. His voice was a bow and arrow aiming at the invisible birds, shooting them down in great numbers. Admittedly, it was so old-fashioned of Blaze to want to wait, kind of hypocritical since he already fathered a child. But in some crazy way, this showed me a side to him that I didn't know I needed. The part of him that wanted me to be viewed in the best possible light. No one would ever able to say, Blaze chose me because the sex was good or because he was under the influence of alcohol. I was one of the broken females from the center. I was a woman he fell in love with for me. The waiting was the problem. 5 days didn't seem that long. Should I go back to my room? I asked, trying to find my panties. No, he pulled me back to the bed. Stay. His husky voice made the hairs on my body stand. Please, just let me hold you tonight. Qui my agent extraordinaire, my Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I didn't think I would be able to sleep. However, his arms were the most comfortable place in the universe. The arousal didn't fade. Not one bit, however. I was still able to fall asleep after an hour or so of us just talking. Blaze and I found happiness. Blaze was the living embodiment of everything I ever craved in a soulmate. Maybe we were destined to find each other all along. For the series of events that led us to this point was comparable to a destined fate. Marking each other would bind our souls as mate. Therefore it would be as if the connection to Jackson never existed. Then I understood. That so-called connection never existed. The next few days weren't as hard as I expected. At night, I slept peacefully in Blaze E.'s arms and was awoken by tiny footsteps running into Blaze E.'s bedroom. Brendan would always rush to check if I were still there, which was my favorite method of being waked. In those short 5 days, we developed a routine that began with waking up in bed. Tickles, then breakfast. When Blaze returned from work, the 3 of us would have dinner, then spend the evening together doing various activities to bond as a family. I loved my new life. I didn't begin moving in my clothes, but Blaze still offered me her side of his closet. Each night, I still received a book as a gift from him that sometimes came with roses or a pamphlet about vacation ideas. He was determined to make our first Christmas together a wonderful adventure with just the 3 of us. He showed me hope in his willingness to plan our future. I couldn't stress on how complete I felt. My trip home was often a topic of discussion when we lay in bed at night. We talked in detail about what I would do when I got back, what I planned to say, how I would be introducing him, and more importantly, Blaze E.'s desire to have me as his chosen. When the day of the celebration reached, going to my former home was easy. I didn't hold my breath or hear the drumming of my heart crying out for mercy. Are you ready? Blaze asked as he drove into the street I grew up on. Nothing was familiar to me. I did know the layouts of the land, but the place was now foreign to me. The smell of the land didn't bring any nostalgia to me, or did it give me a feel of being at home. This place was my past. A past I didn't want to take into my future. Perhaps that was the reason why I felt disconnected. Looking at the line of cars parked outside my father's house, I knew only a limited amount of the pack showed up. Some of the cars I knew belonged to people who did nothing other than gossip when Jackson picked Nita. I remembered the looks they would give me, filled with pity, yet they didn't offer counsel to Jackson or Nita to correct them in the sin they had been committing. I guess they never really cared for anything other than the gossip. With a loud sigh, I replied yes. Let's get over with this. My intention was not to stay longer than necessary. Meet Shay. congratulate her and my brother, then a short reunion with the rest of my family. Should I get the bags? Blaze asked. I brought with me 2 gifts, one for the happy couple and the other for Nolan. A photo album seemed like a good gift for Kyle, Anne and Shay, which I figured would go well with a trip to Alpine Mountains. I also got them. All newly found mates deserve to spend time with each other making memories. Nolan's gift was just a truck, similar to one of Brendan's favorites. Staying honest to myself, I didn't know what to get him that would say sorry I missed your birth and life so far. I wanted to get him something big and loud, but didn't know what he would like. I bought what I knew Brendan would like, which didn't feel right. I should have known at least a little about my nephew. Nothing else stood on my conscience but the mixed feelings of remorse towards Nolan. I felt guilty for being an absent aunt, but nothing more. I did nothing wrong in seeking the best interest for myself. Unfortunately for Nolan, it meant keeping my distance from him. Yes, please. Blaze stopped me from opening the car door. I love you. Today, after I tell your father you and I have chosen each other as mates, I think it's only fair that I know. I think it's fair that we inform Jade as well. Out of courtesy, you want to go to her on our way home. I wondered if he was ready to tell me about her now. If she deserved to know about me, then it should work both ways. What really was there to tell anyway? She abandoned him and his child. That summed up all I needed to know. I realized I was curious at all. I was grateful that she was selfish mate because it left the door open for Blaze and Dino. Not immediately after. I have a little getaway planned for us after here. But I do want to face her sooner than later, he admitted. To my aged extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thank the goddess I was sitting, or my knees would have given away. My boyfriend wanted to take me on a getaway. It'd be lying if I said I didn't already dream this up. Romantic notions like walks on the beach and candlelight dinners on a mountaintop were just some of the things I imagined he had planned. He was, after all, a hopeless romantic underneath it all. All the perfect qualities in a man I found in Blaze. Why was he my fated mate? Did it matter? He was mine now. I didn't pack anything, Blaze. Are we going home first? I wanted to slap myself for not bringing at least one change of clothes. I was so convinced that I didn't want to stay more than necessary, that I purposely didn't carry any luggage. His fingers reached for my face, putting me close to him, then he kissed me. My pheromones had him on edge, as I could taste his mating venom in his kiss. It developed a dependency for the taste, as it always filled his mouth when he sensed the impending heat. Sometimes I thought he intentionally did this, to ward off any other male from sniffing my way. Teens would call this a light claim, when they did it to humans. Even Jackson used to apply this claiming method to many moons ago. Part of my surprise can be a shopping trip. He bit my lip after he parted from the kiss. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Hush now. It's a surprise. A distraction for in the event this evening went south. What was the worst that could happen? They asked me to leave. They certainly cowed and forced me to stay. My heart was still enveloped in an armor, protecting me from the people in the house before me. My mission was only to meet Nolan, that I may never regret not meeting him. Walking up the familiar walkway, I looked at the mailbox, seeing my name was gone. That didn't surprise me. What did, however, was the second mailbox for apartment B with Jackson, Millie and Nolan's name. I knew Rose Garden was added to the front, as if they only just put in some work for today's party. As I got closer to the front door, the aromas of a still-cooking Lund and broil hit me back into my childhood. Grandma cooked this dish at every holiday event, making it her signature dish. This was the only reminiscence I experienced returning so far. The side gate that led to the backyard was opened, which meant the party was being held there. Already I could hear voices both critiquing and complimenting the small shindig. Pleasing everyone wasn't an easy job, I guess. We walked by the familiar rows where Grandmama planted her wild bergamot flowers. The plants weren't in bloom, but when they were, Butterflies and bees would converge to harvest the sweet nectar. My hand went to the back of my elbow, remembering the many times I got stung by bees, trying to catch butterflies. How much of a game it used to be with Nilly and I tried to search for fairies hiding in the flower garden. Back then we thought the bees were the warriors and guardians of the fairies, and getting stung meant we were close to finding them. Life was once good to me, I thought. A toy wooden boomerang was hung on the garden welcome sign. It was worn, it looked like it was used often. Grandpa always made them for us when we were kids. We'd go to the clearing by the lake to spend hours there, tossing the wooden toy into the wind only for it to return to us. How fitting. I too was a boomerang. My entire family, along with a small mass of the pack, were all around some picnic tables that had been joined together to accommodate all the guests. Kalan and Shay were opening presents with all smiles. New love was truly something worth witnessing. Did Blaze and I look like this? Something about the way Shay looked at Kalan made her happiness spread. I felt the love they shared in the air around them. If that was even possible. My hand tightened around Blaze. No one yet noticed I was here. Would you open my next? I spoke with a smile. The words became inaudible around me, as my name was spoken in an inharmonious chorus with gasps and the expected murmuring. A group hug was the last thing I expected, but there I was in the middle of my parents, grandparents. My Uncle Brian and my brother, Nylia and Jackson, weren't in sight. I felt like I was floating in a lake of still water. But this lake wasn't an ordinary one. Its water concentrated with salt so heavy that no matter how much weight were upon me, I was forced to float. There was no sinking into the bottomless flow of this sodium-filled lake, as the salt was the past. Life had taught me how to separate myself from it. Time had removed the brackishness from my body, making me a better person in the end. I still loved and would always love my family, but could never return to how it once was. I think I had vowed to myself to always remember that sharing DNA and looking similar didn't create the real essence of what a family was. You came back. I wasn't sure if that was my grandpa or father asking. You all are going to suffocate her to death if you don't let go. Grandma's weak voice spoke. She sounded so frail that I went into a panic, thinking she was in poor health. For that reason alone, I moved towards her first. Her shaking hands held my face while she broke down in tears. You left. I let them hurt you and you left. She cried. Let them. I thought she didn't have a choice in the matter. This was Jay Axon's choice, was how I remembered it. In good granny. I turned to Blaze, signaling him to come forward. This is my boyfriend. Blaze. I wanted him to meet everyone. His dominating aura flooded the backyard as he neared. He gave a small nod to Alfred Donovan, who was at a table alone. Why wasn't Luna Hestia here? My grandmother hesitated at first, but then took his hand to greet him. She was a woman from a different era, a place where women were seen, not heard. A formal introduction to an alpha broke from the traditional role. Did she forget she was an elderly female now? An honored member of the pack by virtue of age. Then I saw it. How I had been disrespectful to my grandfather, who were technically the heads of the house, by presenting Blaze to my grandmother first. I awaited the backlash. That didn't come. Welcome to our home. Dad smiled at us. Thank you for bringing our girl home. Grandpa spoke in a heavier voice than I remembered him having. I guess he was trying to make an impression with Alpha Blaze. We're just visiting, Blaze said as he shook Dad's hand. He didn't waste time setting the record straight. Not only was my intention to avoid staying more than necessary made clear, but so was the nature of how serious our relationship was. Quintal, Alfred Donovan interrupted. Good to see you, man. Donovan. It's been a while. Blaze reacquainted himself with his peer. All the beautiful and unmated females in the world. I should have known you defined our Luna. She has lived, in the words of the goddess, all her life. The most honorable of all the unmated females this pack has to offer. Donovan praises me. A real blessing from the goddess indeed. Blaze agreed. There's an unsaid envy in Donovan's throat. I didn't consider. A weak she, all for the pack, demands the males grow stronger. Before I left this pack, Donovan carried an undeniable protective aura with him. Either it faded with time, or I gave it to Blaze when I moved packs. Blaze stood in my father's yard, 10 times the protective aura radiating from him. It leaked even in the air he exhales. All the males in my family had also lost their strength boost, and now I wondered if they allowed Jackson to hurt me, just to keep me as their battery pack. That can't be. Nia was the weak one. Right. Still, I awaited a scolding, for either running off or for my poorly manners at the introduction. But they were on eggshells, either pretending to be humbled or avoiding the two alphas from seeing their wrath. I felt the insecurity in their minds, a fear of losing me again. What they don't understand. I'm already lost to them. They were only family in name, and today the connection shall end. Kyle, and this is for you and your mate. I gave him the gift bag. With him was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Her brown skin was as mesmerizing as the deserts and under the sun. Her big dark brown eyes were almost hypnotizing, and her dark hair made me think she was the spokesperson for a shampoo and conditioner. Then when she spoke, her accent sounded as if she were singing her words in a rhythm. I'm so happy to meet you. You have no idea how much this means to me, to Kyle. KY Lan's regret was on her mind. I guess mates stole each other things like that. The things they wish they handled better. Internally I laughed. Behind every good man was a good woman. Shay was that woman who was making Kyle a good man. She had my respect just for that one action. If I didn't come, I never would believe he found a female who could stand him. I said, moving closer to her. I was trying to decide if it were appropriate to hug her, having only now met. I liked her already. Who says I can stand him? She heard everyone erupting in laughter. I wonder if she knew what a terrible big brother he was. The kind who verbally abused me before I shifted because he believed twins should not live to see their first full moon. Freaks, he called us. Not understanding the trait flowed in his body too. One day, he too may be the father of twins. Would he let them live or have Shay terminate them in the womb? Despite how ungodly or cruel it sounds, it would be a kindness to them. Maybe he was strong. Congratulations on finding each other. Blaze and I wish you a happy life together. I said, meaning it from the depths of my guarded heart. She took her time examining the album, then went into a screaming fit when she saw the tickets and accommodations for the Aspen trip. I swear, it was like watching someone win a jackpot. I think I even heard her saying she wanted to go there on her honeymoon, and now she can. Their marriage, would I attend? How do I cut them off but still attend? Where's my nephew? I couldn't will myself to ask for Nilla. H.S. inside. His parents are putting him down for his afternoon nap. I could go get them. Dad jumped to the opportunity. No, it's fine. Let him rest. I'm sure there's plenty time to meet him before I leave. Why I stressed on the word leave. I was sure, but the message was sent. Dad's face dropped as if he were really disappointed that I wouldn't be staying. I've really missed you, kid. Uncle Brian held my shoulder. Welcome back. Cedric, Jackson's dad, spoke to me for the first time in my life. His wife Lexi didn't take the liberty to stand with him, but she did smile at me when our eyes met. I felt a strange sting because this man should have been my father-in-law, a second father who also failed me by allowing his son to be wayward. Thank you, Mr. Tudor, I replied, and the yard went silent. How have you been, Luna? Alfred Donovan spoke loudly from across the table. Ive never been better. What have you been doing? He asked what everyone was wondering. All the attention was solely on me. The other guests didn't try to pretend they weren't also listening. This was now the only conversation at the party, even with the newly found mates at the table. I've been studying law, along with other little things that I focus my time on. I blushed thinking of Blaze. Other things meaning your boyfriend Blaze. Shay asked like a playful teen. The crowd awed and do-ed because I didn't deny. More prying questions came at me for a complete 10 minutes. Blaze and I bravely weathered them together as a united couple. What are your intentions with my daughter, Mr. Quintal? Dad asked, and I was really surprised it took him this long. I couldn't read his mixture of emotions. My intentions, Mr. Miller, are to continue loving her for the rest of my life. I plan on marrying her. With your blessings, of course. Blaze replied, earning Dad's approval. Why did I feel uneasy though?